So it's I kind of titled it "Trusting God When Life Doesn't Make Sense: Lessons from Job." Um, and we'll talk about God's wisdom and sovereignty in suffering, and um, how Job responded to suffering, what he learned about God, and how believers can trust God during difficult seasons. And my first question is, have you ever experienced a situation where you sincerely asked, why would God allow this? The book of Job addresses one of life's hardest questions: why do righteous people suffer? Job does not provide a simple answer, but it teaches us how to trust God even when we don't understand his purposes. My first passage is Job 1 through 3, and it kind of describes about Job's character a little bit. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was perfect and upright, and one that feared God and eschewed evil. And there were born unto him 7 sons and 3 daughters. His substance also was 7,000 sheep, and 3,000 camels, and 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 she-asses, in a very great household, so that this man was the greatest of all the people of the east. And it says that man was blameless and upright. He feared God and shunned evil. Before suffering entered Job's life, Scripture describes him as blameless and upright, reverent toward God, spiritually mature, prosperous, and respected. And Job's suffering was not punishment for sin. And then I want to skip down and read Job 1:20 through 22. Then Job arose and rent his mantle and shaved his head and fell down upon the ground and worshipped. And he said, naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither. I can't say the word. The Lord gave, and the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. In all this Job sinned not, nor charged God foolishly. The Lord gave, and the Lord hath taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised. Job experienced loss of wealth, loss of servants, loss of children, but he still worshiped God. What stands out to you about Job's first response to tragedy? Yeah. I've never really read, this was the first time I've really actually, I've read Job, but I've never, really dived into it, but, it really, if you really sit there and, read it and study it out, it's amazing how this man just kept going through. I've never seen anybody go through all this before, just, how he kept going was just, absolutely amazing to me. Faith is not proven when life is easy. Faith is revealed when life is difficult. And then I was going to talk a little bit about Job's struggle and honest questions. And Job 3:11 is one word. Why died I not from the womb? Why did I not give up the ghost when I came out of the belly? And Job's faith did not eliminate his pain. He grieved deeply, asked hard questions, expressed confusion. The Bible shows that faithful believers can struggle emotionally while still trusting God. And then Job, it's kind of verses all throughout Job. Job 13:15. My husband has no idea what he's been looking to whenever I get up here, so he's surprised everybody says this. Though he slay me, yet I will trust in him, but I will maintain my own ways before him. Though he slay me, yet I will hope in him. Job wrestled with God, but he did not abandon God. There is a difference between questioning God and rejecting God. Job questioned God's actions, but continued seeking him. Why is it important to bring our honest struggles to God rather than hiding them? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, God knows your smallest struggle to your biggest struggle. He knows your right pinky toe is hurting, and he knows, you got something major going on in your life that you can't do. But if you're not honest with him, I mean, he can fix it for you, but I think sometimes before God fixes stuff for you, he wants you to come to him and acknowledge that you have that suffering and that problem yourself. You know? Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, we've said it before, that should always be your first point of defense is going to God when you're struggling through something, but it's often our last. And I think sometimes God just, not that he won't fix it, because he can fix anything he very well wants to fix, but he still wants us to come with those honest struggles of ours and be honest and open with him, because he knows them anyway. We're not hiding nothing from him. Um, God can handle our questions, fears, and grief. Prayer does not require perfect emotions. And then I want to talk about the mistake of Job's friends. Um, and this is going to go back to Job 4 and 7. Remember, I pray thee, whoever perished, being innocent, or where were the righteous cut off? Who, being innocent, has ever perished? Job's friend assumed, if you are suffering, you must have sinned. They believed suffering was always a direct result of personal wrongdoing. While sin can have consequences, Job's situation shows that suffering is not always punishment. And then I'm going to read Job 42 and 7. So sorry. I would give him my list, but then, it may change. Who knows? Job 42 and 7. And it was so that after the Lord had spoken these words unto Job, the Lord said to Eliphaz, is that right? Eliphaz, the Temanite, my wrath is kindled against thee, and against thy two friends, for ye have not spoken of me the thing that is right, as my servant Job hath. I need to take a class. Yeah. No, you're fine. I need to take a class on how to speak names of the Bible. Um, and it was so that after the Lord had spoken these words unto Job, the Lord had said to Eliphaz the Temanite, my wrath is kindled against thee, and against thy two friends, for ye have not spoken of me the thing for ye have not spoken of me the thing that is right, as my servant Job hath. Job's friends. You have not spoken the truth about me, as my servant Job has. God rebuked Job's friends. How can Christians unintentionally become like Job's friends when comforting others? Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, they did. Yeah. 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 And, if you're not careful, instead of being like Job in these trials, sometimes when we lean more towards woe is me. Woe is me. I'm so pitiful. The world's against me. I mean, that's just kind of how we are sometimes. It is. It is. It is. Um, when people suffer, listen more than you speak. Show compassion before offering explanations. Avoid assuming you know why God allowed something. And then I'm going to talk about God's response to Job. Um, and that's Job 38, 1 through 4. Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, Who is that darketh counsel by words without knowledge? Gird up now thou loins like a man, for I will demand of thee, and answer thou me. Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare if thou hast understanding. Where were you when I laid earth's foundation? God never fully explained Job's suffering. Instead, God revealed his greatness, wisdom, and power. God reminded Job that he is the creator, he governs the universe, and his wisdom exceeds human understanding. And then I'm going to go back to Job 42 and read 1 through 3. And then Job answered the Lord and said, I know that thou canst do everything, and that no thought can be withholden from thee. Who is he that hideth counsel without knowledge? Therefore have I uttered that I understood not, things too wonderful for me, which I knew not. Surely I spoke of things I did not understand, things too wonderful for me to know. Job learned that trusting God does not require knowing every answer. Faith often means trusting God's character when we cannot see God's plan. And then I'm going to read Job 42:5. I have heard of thee by hearing of the ear, but now mine eye seeth thee. My ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you. Job's greatest blessing was not restored wealth. It was a deeper understanding of God. And then I have 3 lessons that I kind of learned from studying out Job. 1, suffering is not always punishment. 2, God welcomes honest faith even when we struggle. And 3, we can trust God's wisdom when we don't understand our circumstances. And I might make it to 10 o'clock today. The final question I have is, which lesson from Job do you need most in your life right now? If you don't want to answer out loud, you don't have to. But it's just kind of something to ponder and think on. I like to make you guys think out during the week. It's, and I think everybody, whether it be, I mean, I just feel sometimes in this day and time with everything just coming against everybody, I just think it feels like it's one thing after another all the time anymore. Like, I think it's really hard for people, just the way the world is, I just think it's hard for people to find peace, in themselves. And, um, as we go further, this world gets further and further away from God every day. And in that sense, it's going to be harder and harder to find peace every day. And sometimes I just feel like even in my life, I mean, it just seems like one thing after another, something's going wrong, something's tearing up, someone said something mean, like it's just all the time, it's constantly. Yeah. No, I know. Yeah, we got our water heater or pipes busted, and we got that fixed. And then a week after we got that fixed, the check engine light came on our truck. It's like, really? Fixed it. Yeah, I know. And it's little things. I mean, I know that we could have a whole lot more worse things going on than my check engine light coming on in my car, or a pipe bust in my bathroom. I'm very fortunate that those are just things that I can fix. I was blessed with people who live beside of us who were able to help us fix it. I mean, like, we're blessed in that sense. But sometimes it does feel like those little things add up. You know, and I guess I'm just blessed. I don't have real big things in my life that I'm having to go through right now. But it's just little things do add up, and I mean, it may not be big suffering, but sometimes it makes you feel like it's suffering nonetheless. You know, yeah. Mhm. Yep. Mhm. You know, you always. You want me to read it? Then Job arose and rent his mantle and shaved his head and fell down upon the ground and worshipped. Hmm. I mean, and in that sense, I'm not saying I shouldn't do this, but I'm not going to shave my head. I mean, that's just how we are. You know, that's what separates us. Like, we're not going to shave our heads and fall down on the ground and worship. We're not. I'm not saying we shouldn't. I'm not saying that's right. But in our flesh, that's not something we do on a daily. I mean, I've never one time shaved my head and got down and worshiped God. I mean, like, that's just stuff that, you know, yeah, 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 yeah. No, yeah. Hmm. Hmm. It's kind of funny. Truist got stung twice by a wasp now, one here and one yesterday. And both times he came up to me, he said, "I got stung by a wasp. It hurt." And he just went on about his business. And I thought, maybe we should all do that. Maybe we should just say stuff like that, and be like, "Well, that hurt," and then just go on about our business. Like that's how I feel like we should be like sometimes. Just, well, my car tore up. We're gonna figure it out anyway, and we're gonna go on. But instead, I feel like I said, we just kind of stop and say, "My world's falling apart. My car's tore up, and I can't do anything. I'm going to sit here all day and cry." And really, what good is it doing you? I mean, I'm not saying we don't do it. I don't know about else. I personally have not got down to my floor and worshiped God one day this week. And you think about stuff like that. I mean, I should be doing that every day. But and like I said, I don't know what everybody else has done, but I know I haven't done that this week. I mean, I probably should have every day this week, but I didn't. And that's just stuff I think we just, skip over. And then you always, hear about, well, they got the patience of Job. And, you don't really realize it until you read Job, what that actually means. I mean, this poor man, I mean, he lost literally everything. He had absolutely nothing left. Nothing. He did. Yep. 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 Yeah, I mean, yeah. Yep. Yeah. Not 140 years. Promise you that. I mean, 'cause that's just how we are. You know. I mean, I would love to have the character of Job. I would love to have the patience that Job did and the faith that Job did throughout this book. But I mean, in all honesty, if this was all happening to me, I don't know that I would have the same faith. And that's just me being honest. I mean, I would love to think that I had this amount of faith that if I lost my house, my cars, my kids, my husband, my parents, my family, if I lost literally everything and I was standing in a desert lot with absolutely nothing but what I had on my back, I mean, I would love to say that I would have that kind of faith and I would get on the ground and worship God. But I mean, it's hard to say that, and I think that's what we need to build up to in our lives. That is stuff like that does happen. I mean, people lose their children. You don't understand that. You don't understand why. And I think sometimes with that, the Bible talks about having peace that passes all understanding. And I think sometimes that is what you would have to have. But it would be real hard, as a mother, to lose my children and get down on the ground and worship God. I mean, yeah, everything. I mean, my kids and my family is my life. I mean, sometimes I put my family, I should not, but sometimes in my heart, I put my family above God. Because they're physically here with me. I shouldn't do that. And it's something we all work on and struggle with. Like I said, I'm just being honest. But, it would tear me from the inside out if my whole entire family just died and just left, I mean, and just to think that I would get on the ground and worship God is amazing to me. It really is. I mean, if you haven't read it, I encourage you to go read the whole book. It's not talked about a whole lot, but it's one of my favorites. Ruth is my very first favorite, but I like Job too. And Esther. Esther's a good book if you guys haven't read Esther. But anyway, that's all I have. It is. Go read all the books. All the books are great. But those are my top three. And Proverbs. Yeah. So anyway, that's all I had for today. Look, I lasted 10:07 today. Look at me go. Almost 10:15. You're welcome. You're welcome. I like to. Sometimes I like to make myself think. So if I have to make myself think, I want to make everybody else think too. So, like, if I have to think, you guys do too. So.